Board of Barrels getting cosy here on here at the Woolhouse. The boys are sharing one mic because we've been procrastinating. We're like, we'll have to buy more mics, and we've been talking about that for a long time, but hasn't quite eventuated. But that's okay. But it's all worth it because we're here with some special guests, and my back's already seizing up, so I'll cross over to Grazie.
So we're here with Barry and Jodie on behalf of Murray Towns Brewery. How you going, guys?
Good, boys. Yeah,
good,
thank
thanks.
you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. This is a real treat for us to be able to do, and thank you to Gav as well from the Woolhouse for facilitating the afternoon. And we've got a nice little pot of a beer named Sue, which is the first Murray Towns offering. When did that come out?
That was probably now 8 months ago, Jodie. Would it be out in the market? I would think we've done our fourth batch of that, so that's about 4 tonne of Sue that's been out in the market now. So
I think it probably would have been more than that. I think it would be. We're nearly getting close to a year, I think.
Yeah.
So 4 tonne of beer.
4 tonne
of Sue.
Of just Sue.
Just Sue.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start off. How did it all come about? How did Murray Towns Brewing start, and how did a beer named Sue become the first beer?
It all started in Jodie's Chilkyard in South Albury. We probably through COVID, wasn't it, Jodie? Jodie was been home brewing for a long time, and he just invited myself and Andrew, the other partner who's not with us today, around just to try some of his beers and sit around the campfire, if you like, try to replicate being in the great outdoors in a chilkyard, literally surrounded by chickens.
Perfect.
With a campfire, cooking up a storm as Jodie does, and then sampling his beers. For Andrew and I, it was brilliant because we just got a free hit on beers every Sunday evening, and we said to Jodie right from the start, I said, the actual beer is really good, better than probably what you think. I think. So kind of progressed from there, and we said, to me, it filled a hole in the market in terms of its taste. Always looking for something more than the commercial brews, but sometimes crafts can be a little hoppy or a little bit over the top in terms of taste. But I think this filled a hole that are really easy, sessionable type beers that are easy drinking, and we thought, well, why not bite the bullet? Albury, Wodonga back then didn't have a craft brewery. I think there's a market for it. Let's hit the button and go.
I'll go off script already, but I'm excited to hear that it came from a homebrew situation, because I've had a bunch of mates. Now, Hutto, I'm not talking about you. Yours was good. But you want to come over and try my homebrew, and you're a bit worried. You're like, oh, geez. But by the sounds, you had an excellent experience.
Hey, my beer used to be like that.
Yeah. How many homebrews do you reckon you did before beer called Sue turned up?
Well, I'm getting pretty ancient now, and I've been. I started home brewing probably in my late teens, so I just mucked around for years, not knowing what I was doing. Sometimes I'd create something and I thought, oh wow, this is really good, and because I didn't know the science behind it all, I would eventually stuff it up and lose my way, and so every now and again I'd just lose track and I'd give up for a while, and then I'd come back to it. But it's only in the last sort of 5 years or so, and it's always interested me, but that I got into all grain brewing and then decided I really wanted to start creating my own flavours and stuff. And so, basically I don't really go trying to hit any specific style when I'm creating a beer. Well, sometimes I do. Like, I've got an English mate, and he wanted a classic English bitter, so eventually that's what the Ashes is.
Yep.
And he's pretty happy with that, so I'm happy. But generally I just, try beers, and then I think about the flavour profiles of those beers, and then I think, it'd be good to have a beer with a bit of this and a bit of that, and then I just start throwing some ideas together, and things develop. So I'm not not real technical in the way I set my recipes up, but think I get there in the end.
Yeah, the results speak for themselves, because after a few sips of this, is the first time I've actually had a beer named Sue on tap. I've had the cans and this tastes so fresh, and it's a new beast when you can get it on the tap, I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool to hear that. Almost, you say you keep it quite simple with everything, because there is a tendency these days to, I mean, the boys just went to Gabs last week, and it's all experimental stuff, and we are always looking for crazy experimental beers. And I said to you guys before we recorded, something like the Ashes, a simple English bitter, is not something I usually look for, and each time I've had it, it's been so enjoyable. It's finding something new in something that is simple, which is fantastic. And I think there's a huge market for that amongst all the hazies and all the sours and all the crazy stuff that we sort of see these days. So yeah.
Well, I've got to admit, I have tried a few of the crazy beers, and most of them, you'll have one, but you sort of think, oh yeah, that's interesting, but you sort of don't go back for more.
Yep.
Whereas something like the Ashes, it's that traditional English style where, the punters go down to the pub and they drink it all afternoon, and that's how it's designed. It's about 4.5% alcohol. It's not too challenging in its flavours, and guys will just sit there and drink it all afternoon.
Absolutely.
And still leave in a reasonable state at the end of it.
So we are having a beer named Sue right now.
Yep.
Now we can come up with our own ideas about the flavour that we're getting. What exactly was the intention for a beer named Sue? If you could sell it to people who may not have had it before.
The intention was to create a beer that had a reasonable amount of malt sort of flavour to it. I really like that fruity sort of, those aromatics and the fruity flavours of those New World hops and everything.
Yep.
And that was my main inspiration for a beer named Sue.
Yep.
And when we were trying to think of a name, the name originally sort of came about because we thought that it had a strong character, but it still had a femininity to it.
Yep.
And then we started playing around with names, and one of our marketing guys says, "Oh, how about we call it a beer named Sue?" And then we thought, oh yeah, and it's got to be pretty strong in the marketplace too. So it sort of went with the theme of the the Johnny Cash song as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because as I was writing out a couple of questions for you guys, I was referring to Sue as like a person in the question. So the actual marketing itself, there's not many beers you can do that with, unless people do name them after someone. But I wouldn't think there's a lot of core range beers in Australia I'm aware of that are named after a person necessarily either. So I think there's a cool marketing thing with that. But one thing, so we know we can get it, we're at the Woolhouse having it now. There's a few other local establishments that do have it on tap.
Yeah.
I found it at some local IGAs, the Lane Cellars as well, which friends of ours, Chris over there. How far is the reach though? Are we still only locally on the border?
Yes.
Or
At this stage, we'll stay local. We have had a little bit of interest. I've got some contacts in Melbourne that keen to put a little bit in, but at the moment we just want to stay as local as we can and then build as we go. But that's probably going to be for later on when we're doing our own brewing. So while we're contracting through Tumut, we probably stick to the 4 styles and stay fairly local in terms of our reach. But we love the support we have been getting from local businesses. Gav here at the Woolhouse is a great supporter of craft beers, and he's jumped on board quite early. Lane Cellars, obviously, Chris and Mel down there are so passionate about craft beers and independent wines, and they do an amazing job to promote the industry itself. On tap, Public House jumped on very early. Church Street's been a great supporter. Canvas has it on tap there now. Gav here at Woolhouse. So we really are thankful for that local support, and the feedback we get is that people, when they do visit, and we know from our own experience that people do seek a local brew.
Yeah.
It's usually the freshest and probably the most enjoyable drink that you can have when you're out travelling. So the demand has been really strong. So really thankful for the support.
Yeah, well, it represents a region to a point, and we've had Beechworth Pale for so many years, and it's great that its reach has gone to every place in town as well. And we consider Beechworth to be local; it's not very far away. But having, I think that the tagline, that Albury's first artesian brew pub. Did I get that right? What was it?
Not
Artisan.
Artisan.
Yeah.
Artisan.
Why do you guys let me do the talking?
Put your hand on the mic.
Oh yeah, well, that's my fault, wasn't it? So I think there's a real pride in that as well. So
Yeah. And I think the artisan is important because, as Jodie's explained, he doesn't necessarily go chasing a style of beer. It's kind of what he thinks works best in terms of how he puts it together, what profiles he's looking for. So usually he'll create a beer and they think, well, we need to pigeonhole it somewhere, so let's call it this or that. But it really comes down to how he balances those flavours.
I just a quick question before we move on, but with a beer named Sue. So what are the hops involved? And that's the main thing for us. So there's obviously malts involved, but that'd be way above our heads. We're getting to that stage where we're trying to get across hops a bit first, and then we'll get into the malts and all that kind of stuff. But what's in this one specifically?
So this one we went for, I'm trying to think what I did put in it now. We've got Mosaic in there, and a bit of Galaxy, obviously for the fruitiness. But I didn't want it to have too much of that, over-the-top fruitiness, and I wanted to kill a little bit of that, maybe that cloyness that, that you can get if there's too much. And so I chucked in a little bit of Nelson Sauvin from New Zealand.
Yep.
It's got a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of tartness or something to it that just sort of cuts through that, that really fruit sort of tropical sort of.
It's
thing.
very moreish, if you can say that about a beer. Obviously, sessionable might be more so the word, but you're right. Like if you get those beers that do have the fruit profile that is maybe a bit more heightened, you have a few and you think, I'm sort of done.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not generally a 4 or 6 pack purchaser of beer. I've purchased a few 4 packs of Sue because I know that I'm probably going to enjoy having 1 or 2 or 3 as opposed to just having a beer and being done. So I think that really lends itself to how you just described the intentions for it to be. And I know Galaxy and Mosaic are 2 of our favourite hops, that's for sure. So it's definitely clarifies what we thought or confirms what we thought about the beer for sure.
Oh, no, I just wanted to, probably going back over what Grazie sort of said, this is the first time I've had it on tap. And, it's excellent. Yeah. It really is. And having a bit of a smell and a bit of a taste, I'm glad you said Mosaic because that would have been one of my guesses, but I'm still like a throw a dart and see what hits kind of guy as far as that. But, it's delicious. And as far as the branding, it is different. It really is different. A beer called Sue. There's not normally it's a brand name, blah 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 blah, double dry hop something ale. You know what I mean? And I think it is. It does create some intrigue. I just think you've done a really good job. The website's nice and clean and really cool too. So I'm just excited, and I think since it's a local legend as well, people just get behind it. I'm behind it. I'm excited. To see what you come up with next.
We really want to capture that local feel. It's in our logo. Really, the 2 circles, represent Albury Wodonga with the river running in between. Yeah. All our graphics in terms of the curves and the flow really try and represent our region and where we're from. So we're proud locals, and we want the beer to represent that. So we're in a great region, and we want to make sure everyone knows it.
Yeah. Now the contract brewing, that's the correct way of announcing that, at Tumut River. How does that partnership develop?
Well, I guess it first started when I was exploring, different malts and things like that, and we sort of made a decision that we wanted to keep everything as local as we can. So we went out to Voyager and saw Stu out there, and talked about their malts, and then I said to him, well, we really want to get some beer out in the marketplace even before we've got our own brew house, just to get some branding done and that sort of thing. Who would do some contract brewing for us? And he says, you could try Tumut. So I gave Tim a ring, and he was on board, and he was amazing really, because I was really nervous about converting my little grainfather 21 litre, sample into a, 1,000 litre job.
A big production.
Yeah. I'm thinking, oh my God, what if it tastes like crap? And Tim said to me, look, I've got an opportunity here that might work. And he was creating a season beer for a festival. He said, you chuck me your recipe and we'll make that as a seasonal for this festival. Won't cost you a cent. I'll chuck you a couple of slabs, and that's what happened.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's how it got kicked off with Tim, and he's been great all along. It's
been awesome.
Yeah. Well, we really like their beers. I think there's almost a similarity with you guys with them, because any of their beers I have, it's like really nice, clean marketing. You know exactly what you're going to get. Yeah. And I say to these guys all the time, their West Coast IPA, I think it's one of the best examples of that style that you can get. And as I've said to you before, the English Bitter is probably one of the best examples I've had of that style of beer as well. So it's a cool little thing that you guys have that relationship, and we'll ask more questions about having your own brew pub soon, but I'm sure that relationship will continue to develop, where they've probably got your beers on tap at their brewery, I would think. Yeah. And that's probably a relationship you'd also like to continue as well
absolutely.
In the future. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that draws us to the craft industry is that spirit of collaboration.
Yeah.
And most of the craft breweries that we talk to, Nathan at King River and Middet Brewing, they're all really supportive and really keen to support other local breweries, especially startups like us. So, we really welcome and love the support they've been giving us and the encouragement they give us as well. And in the future, and we certainly look to collaborate with those guys as much as we can.
Yeah. We spoke to Rhiannon from Bridge Road last week, and we actually asked the question, we're like, how do these collabs come about? Because in a traditional business sense, you guys are competing, but she mentioned, and it goes along with what you're saying, is that although you're kind of sharing a marketplace, the ultimate goal is to grow craft beer, whether it's yours or theirs, and
I think that's the intent. Is that I think everyone in that craft industry understand we still hold quite a small percentage of the market. There's significant room for growth, and I think everyone in the industry understands the importance of that gateway beer, so that those traditional beer drinkers that may not have tried a craft beer, that first beer they try into that craft is really important. So everyone's invested in the industry and wanting others to succeed, because we know if someone goes and has a Bridge Road Pale Ale, they're going to enjoy it, or if they have one of Nathan's King River beers, one of his Pale Ales, they'll enjoy it. And that's really important, so that keeps growing the industry, so that people aren't scared off by crafts, which can happen. So that spirit of collaboration, I think, and seeing other breweries succeed is really important for all of us. So I think that's a great asset of the market.
I have a question just on that. Hand raised. We were talking about that with Rhiannon, and I made the comparison with music, but I've since thought about it. Sort of music, there are a fair few collaborations, and the craft beer industry seems like there's a lot of collaborations, and like Adidas doesn't really collab with Nike. So I'm just thinking, do you think it's sort of a loaded question, because I'm sort of thinking that since it's craft, there's a lot of art involved, like art before business kind of thing. It's like, you're all trying to grow each other and really create exposure. And do you think it's because it's a bit of art before business sort of thing?
It's passion. I think it's passion.
Yeah, I think so. And I think any of those creative type industries really encourage other creatives, and I think we really get excited by what other breweries are producing, and some of the festival beers I've had just recently have been amazing, and they continue to push boundaries, and that's where the industry's going. And while we have a great stable of really drinkable beers, sessionable beers, there's also that element of let's see what else we can do, and certainly when we're in our own brew house, that will kick in a little bit more as well.
On the festivals, you guys have been at a couple of the local festivals, I believe. Now, you're speaking about introducing like gateway beers. I would have to think that there'd be a lot of people that were probably trying you guys for the first time and maybe having their first proper craft beer at those festivals. Did you find that was the case, and how was the feedback from people who maybe haven't tried anything beyond something sort of quite basic into, trying something new?
Look at a great example of that. We're at a submarine festival in Holbrook, and we were there with Tumut River, and a lot of those farm boys up there, particularly, really set in their ways in terms of what they drink. They won't sway from, Melbourne Bitter, Carlton Draft, Great Northern, and when they were confronted at this festival with only two options, which was us or Tumut, they kind of had to bite the bullet and take the jump into craft. And the feedback we got was really, really encouraging, because they said, well, this is actually quite good. I'm quite surprised, I've always drank whatever I've always drank, and, to try it, it goes, actually, and they were coming back for more. Yep. So, yeah, it was, and that's the importance of that gateway beer is, those guys, now when they walk into a pub, they won't just look for Carlton Draft on tap. They might think, I've had that before, I'll try that pale ale, or I'll give that a crack, because, it's just, I guess, opening the experience to them. Yeah. Well, people like seeming like they're the ones to discover something. So if they've got mates that weren't there, they can be like, hey, you should try this. Like, I had it at this festival, and they all of a sudden, they look like a pretty big deal, don't they? Yeah, spot on.
Now, before we jump into the big stuff, just give us a brief rundown. We've already spoken a little bit about the Ashes. Just want to give us a bit of an idea about the Ashes and the Smooth Operator Session Ale as well. Just the history of those beers, and maybe some interesting tidbits on malts or hops or anything people might like to know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess as I said before, with the Ashes, it was sort of trying to hit that English sort of session sort of beer, and we. Once we got that, we thought, well, we sort of need to fill that gap in our range that's, like getting closer to a mid-strength. So, and, people want a session in mid-strength. So we sort of mimicked the Ashes a little bit there, although it does have some fruitier hops in it than the Ashes. But it's still got that similar sort of biscuity sort of flavour to it, and but it was more just to try and cover that, Great Northern drinker. Yeah. And try and get them over.
Yep. No. Oh.
No, you're on.
I can't see the question list, unfortunately.
It's still, and then you've got the Smooth Operator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the Smooth Operator.
That is the Smooth Operator.
That was
Sorry.
It's actually the Smooth Operator is the only beer I haven't tried from Murray Towns. So like I've had a few. I've had a beer named Sue a fair bit, and the Ashes. But yeah. So no. So what might be next? I know you guys have brought a few things for us, which is awesome. But would you think that the beers you have brought today might be something that would be the next thing that we see in cans?
It's definitely something that you'll see in cans, because it's going into production on Tuesday.
Beautiful.
And it's named after another person as well.
Well, we know the marketing's working, so that's a good idea.
So and we can have a try of it when you guys feel like it.
Yeah.
It's a red ale, a dark red ale. And it's called Nagging Cell.
Nice. Yep. We don't have to go too into that, but that...
we won't go into that too much, because, it's somebody who is quite close to me. And
here we go.
So there's a bit of a scoop for you. That's how she's going to present.
Yeah.
Well, we won't show it yet, but geez, it looks good. I'll tell you what.
I will say the one thing you mentioned, who do you have doing the can design? A big thing of our podcast is we love good can art and good visual marketing. So who's doing that side of the Murray Towns?
We've stayed local with that as well. So big agency have been doing our branding for us or with us, and they've been really good to work with. They spend a lot of time looking at what works, and we really wanted to be fairly simple in the messaging, but also in the way the brand presents on the shelf. A lot of craft beers can be quite busy. I was always drawn to Bolter and the very plain, or not plain, but sort of
Less is
minimalist
more.
type. Less is more, and
Yeah.
it always stood out to me on the shelf. So I think what they've done is that the beers work beautifully together on the shelf. They look great together as a family, and that's really important to have that brand across the family.
One thing I noticed too, you see them all, you see one by one, and you think it's the same art, different colour. It's not quite. It's
Not quite.
slightly which I really like as well.
Yeah.
So it's like I noticed the lines are in sort of slightly different spots on each can, so it makes you look twice when you see them all together.
Yeah,
So,
and I guess it tries to reflect that artisan approach to it, is that everything's a little bit different, everything's not uniform, and even batch to patch there's going to be nuances that will be different because it is effectively an artisan beer, and that's part of the charm of producing beer, is that you do get those nuances and they can change over a batch and over a different brew depending on conditions, and it's interesting.
So we're pretty excited. We've got the big growler. It's pouring a very hazy coloured beer. Now,
Not the.
This is not the next, this is
This is
Golden
not,
Mac.
Yeah.
so I may have overheard you before. We're starting with this just so we get the flavours right in the...
So I missed a lot of. What was the beer that we were just talking about?
Oh, the nagging cell.
Nagging Cell, sorry.
It's a red ale, yes.
So
The next in the...
which beer do we have here that we're going to taste test for the first time?
This is a Golden Mac. This one
Golden Mac.
was originally one I really loved. It was probably the clubhouse leader, I think, in terms of what Jodie was producing early on, and was, destined to become one of our flagship beers because it's just a beautiful drinking ale, and Jodie will expand on that. But yeah, I think it's got beautiful mouthfeel. It just drinks really well.
Well, we have like a 5 different points of a rating system, and we always say we should put smell test in there. And I can tell you this is a 5 out of 5 for smell test straight away.
Yeah.
And we also love a beer that comes out as advertised. And from what we got a brief explanation before, but Jodie, if you want to talk us through a little bit more in depth about this beer as well, because I get the feeling it's going to pass the as advertised test as well.
Well, really, I developed this beer for malt character, and I've really tried to develop some caramelly sort of, quite sweet flavours in it. There's a little bit of fruitiness there, but not too much, and I haven't really gone over the top with dry hopping or anything like that. In fact, I haven't done any dry hopping on that. I've done a few Whirlpool additions, not too much in the way of hops at all.
Well, I would have to say, as advertised, it's almost a 5 because it's still. What do you reckon, Gratz? It's really caramelly. It's almost desserty. It's delicious.
So is the
I was just going to say, give the guys some context. If Simo's saying it's a 5, it's a 10 out of 5. Simo is very frugal with his 5, so
I don't know why.
So
But you're right, it does have that beautiful caramelly, little bit of sweetness
It's
to
funny,
it.
it's
drinkable.
the sweetness. We love freshness and organic tasting beers as well. There's nothing tastes artificial about that sweetness, because that can be a huge issue with beers that you might say taste sweet. It can either be too sweet, or the sweetness can be enjoyable but a tad artificial tasting. We're not getting that with this at all. So yeah.
Well, that sweetness is all developed through the mashing process rather than any additions of whatever, and just the selection of a few nice pale malts there, and just some Vienna and Valoria, and just a reasonably high mashing temperature. And so that's how all those sort of caramelly flavours end up coming through in it. But the reason it's not in the main suite yet is because it's got macadamias in it.
My next question was going to be, and I had a sneaky suspicion that might have been...
very, very expensive can.
Yeah.
And I spend all night shelling macadamias just to do a 20-litre batch, and you don't even get that many macadamias. So, and then I roast them myself as well. So when we come to make this commercially, we'll have a bit of work to do in figuring out how we're going to do it. Yeah.
Find a good deal on that.
Yeah, and at least get like one of those nut crackers,
Yeah,
so you're
that's
not
right.
hand doing it yourself.
Crack a Mac.
Yeah, I've got a Mecca cracker.
There you go, good stuff. You might have to have two of them, one in each hand. But yeah, this is absolutely delicious. Again, about the marketing, like you walk in, you're like, give us a Sue, give us a Mac. Like I like that kind of thing. I think that'll catch on for sure. Absolutely delicious. Shall we break some news? Breaking news coming from it's a Border Barrels exclusive here. The guys were talking. We've alluded to it a couple of times about what the next steps are for the business and what you're expanding into. Would you like to tell us?
Yeah, certainly. Love to be able to tell everybody that we have just signed a lease and we're going into the space at the Lincoln. It's kind of a full circle for that place. It originally started its life as a brewery, and hopefully it's going to finish its life as a brewery because, we've got a nice space out there which we can build a beautiful brew house, have our own tap room, outdoor area. So that's, signed, sealed and delivered. Our brew house system has been designed. Brewtique have done that for us, and that's been ordered, so that's all underway. We've got a lot of works to do down there, obviously, but we're really hopeful, touch wood, and everything going right, that we will be serving beers there before Christmas. That's the wish, that's the aim. It's been a long process to get to that point. There's a lot of hurdles, a lot of regulations that you've got to tick off before you can actually even get to the point of, having a site. But thankfully the boys down there, Cal and Dan, we know how good they've been at the Good Shed, and they're doing a similar job at the Lincoln in terms of how they present the place. They're getting people down there now. We're really excited by, jumping into it and making our own beer.
Activating that Lincoln Causeway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, we all know the history of that place. It did start life as a brewery, and there's been some incarnations in there that probably haven't worked, but we're really confident that the Lincoln is doing a great job to bring people down there. Wodonga Council are really keen to activate that space. We know what the drawing power of a good operating brewery is in terms of not only a local attraction, but bringing people in from outside. And we think there's massive opportunity in developing the industry here in Albury. We know that Thirsty Devil have opened. We know that Black Range are coming, and we'd really love to see a good group of breweries right here in Albury. And then, we've also got the great breweries in the regions as well. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't come to Albury and spend 4 or 5 days on a brewery tour.
Absolutely.
3 breweries here, then go out to Bridge Road, or go out to Midder, or go out to King River, or go up to Thirsty Crow. There's a real opportunity to create a really good craft beer industry hub right here.
Yeah.
Now, will it be part of the existing building at the Lincoln, or are they doing a add-on, or is it just...
The building is existing, so at the moment that the space is vacant.
Perfect.
So we've signed a sublease for, if you can imagine the Lincoln, where you drive in on the right hand side as you drive in. It used to be a cheese room going back, way back. So it has its own space available that we can have our own tap room, and then the brew house will be in behind that as well. Cal and Dan have been great in terms of how we've managed the process. We'll be able to use their kitchen to have our food offer, which solves a massive problem for us, because if you set up in a commercial space somewhere else and have to deal with setting up a kitchen, there's a whole nother lot of hoops to jump through just to get the regulations on board to do food as well. So it solves some massive problems for us in terms of planning. It ticks all the boxes, so that's a straightforward process for us. So it's
And was that you approaching them, or was that...
We thought initially that it would be a good fit, that the space lended itself to the brewery, obviously because of its history. And just the fact that, to work with those guys as well, to collaborate with them, and they also appreciate the fact that, they understand what a brewery will do to help bring people to that area as well. So I think it's a win for both of us, and I think, can't wait to get into it.
I was going to ask about the kitchen. For when you first mentioned it, I thought, so you can go for a beer, but then the food would be attached to the Lincoln, so it would be your own food kit. So how do you go about that in regards to? Do you guys have an idea of food you'd like? Do you have a chef on board already, or someone that can develop a menu?
We'll work with Alex at the Good Shed, and also the Lincoln to develop a menu for us. We want it to be a unique menu to us, so it'll be different but complementary to the Lincoln, if you like. But we're sort of more interested in having almost that single-handed food offer, so that you can have a beer and have something you can just grab,
something that you can pair with the beer too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So sharing and pairing, if you like, is what we'll be about. But just a nice, simple, not so much simple, but a really good food offer that matches our beers. And
we need more degustation nights on the board. I'm just going to put that out there for you guys to think about, because I love a good degustation and I don't see them enough.
Yeah, well, a degustation with beer matching, I think, it's got a lot of legs. Who doesn't love 9 courses with 9 different beers?
It's so underrated, and I haven't seen one around for a little while. So
I get you.
Absolutely. And I think the only problem I foresee with this is it's a pretty big car park already, but you might need to double it, because I reckon there's going to be a few people going down there. And shout out to Dan, he's the craft beer father, sort of brought it here a while back. And it turns out he's not just a pretty face. He's good with business as well, and runs it really well. And it's again that collaboration, like that's it's awesome. It's really good.
Now, we glossed over it. We will come back to the brewpub because there's probably more things we want to know about that. On the Mac, so we didn't ask the ABV or the percentage of the...
Yeah, she's getting up there a little bit. About between 5.3 and 5.4 is what I've calculated.
Yeah.
Out of the grain father. So you want to be a bit careful, but
it's quite a full tasting beer, not in a boozy way, but you could definitely tell it's not anything under. It wasn't under 5. I knew it wasn't going to be under 5, but yeah. Now with you mentioned, was it Brewtech?
Brewtech, yes.
Yeah, sorry, Brewtech. I'm familiar with them. So they help set up spaces, do they?
So they do brewery design. They've probably done 50 to 60 breweries around Australia at the moment.
Awesome.
So, and Gavin, he has his own brewery in Sydney as well. So he's in Alexandria, in that area, right in amongst it. So he understands the industry really well. Really invested. And the guys they've got working for them, Neil, who works with them, they've just done a brewery set up in Mount Beauty.
Yes, yep.
Did
they do Crank Handle, or was it
Mountain Monk?
Mountain Monk.
Sorry, yes.
It's funny when you guys are mentioning the Lincoln and you being sort of part of the Lincoln setup. I believe Mountain Monk's also something similar. Are they part of the West Peak Hotel or something, or they got their own separate?
I think so. I think we're going to need to get up there and visit them, because the brew system they've got is basically similar to the one we're putting in. But Brewtech have been very good in terms of not only they just don't supply the product, they really invested in making sure that there's no hiccups and that they get involved with the first few brew processes as well.
That's awesome.
Everything runs smoothly. They've been so far great to deal with. It's been a good partnership so far.
Yep.
And we think they're got a lot to offer.
Yep, that's so exciting. And as you mentioned as well, we have Thirsty Devil here, Black Range. I know, I think you guys were still the first ones locally that I saw anywhere, which was super exciting. It's great for us, having been craft beer drinkers for a while and loving a trip to Melbourne or going to Beechworth, but having it on our doorstep and having the option now for more places in town. And I think, I had a work Christmas party here at the Woolhouse last year, and you've just mentioned trying to open before Christmas. I did tell Gav we might bring the Christmas party back here, but we won't tell him unless he listens. If you open before Christmas, I reckon the Christmas party may have to move.
We'd be happy to have you. But I think the good thing is that even if you go around to some of the restaurants and pubs in town now, that I guess trailblazers like the Good Shed and even Gav here at Woolhouse, who are great supporters. You know, you're just starting to see that translate into the more traditional pubs in town, where they understand that there is an appetite for craft beers now, and the more guys like this continue to promote, the better it is for the industry.
Yep. So while we finish off the delicious Mac, from a more personal perspective with both you guys, what would you say your journey to enjoying beers that you like, where did it come from? So we talked about the boys from Holbrook at the Submarine Festival that are trying something for the first time, but what was your own personal journeys to get to where we are today with the beers that you enjoy and now make?
From my perspective, you know, I grew up and, you know, VB and Carlton Draft were it. Like, you know, there was no... And being from Melbourne, you know, there was this great divide where, you know, you go to New South Wales and they're drinking Tuies or something, and it's like, what is that all about? And, you know...
Queensland was tough before Bolter came about. It was
right.
like, oh yeah, they got 4X, what else do they got?
Exactly. And, you know, I suppose my journey was a little bit similar to a lot of people, is that, you know, I was looking for something else a little bit different. So then, you know, you just try a Corona with lemon, and then, you know, that's a beer that starts you on a little bit of a journey to say, well, what else is out there? What else can I try? And it's just, a matter of really looking or seeking those beers that are different flavour profiles. And, you know, I kind of look back, or I look on this, you know, that whole Canadian Club thing about, you know, sick of beer, try Canadian Club. And I kind of think now, you know, the catch cry should be, if you're sick of beer, actually try beer.
Yeah.
Like, you know, try real beers, try craft beers, where you've got a whole world of flavour profiles to try. There's a whole gamut of, you know, different flavours that you can actually try in craft beers. So just don't stick with the beer you've always had.
Yep. I think the second exclusive on the pod was the next tagline for Murray Towns. Sick of beer, try beer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great message.
He's
that, you know,
passionate, isn't he?
Yeah. I think it's a great message, is that, there's so much available in the industry. Let's try it. Let's support some of these beautiful craft beers.
How about you, Jodie?
Well, I'm a Kiwi originally, and when I moved over here from drinking Kiwi beer, Australian beer is very different, and I just didn't like it.
Yeah, okay.
And so I started just brewing my own quite basic beers, but, you know, it was better than drinking the mainstream beers, you know, from here. And then, you know, after doing that for a few years, and I got into mountain biking, and I used to go out to Beechworth and mountain bike out there, and then we used to finish off at the Bridge Road Brewery, and Bridge Road Brewery really introduced me to craft.
Yep.
Because, you know, we went there, we'd start looking at the beers, and we'd say, oh, what's this one? And you'd get a description of the flavours and everything, and then you'd go away and you'd try it, and you'd, wow, yeah, I can taste that, and that's amazing, you know. And that's what really kicked me off. That's what inspired Sue as well to, you know, try and do something like Bridge Road. And
for you being a Kiwi, so did you start off with Tui the go-to over there?
No, it was DB.
Okay, there you go.
DB Draft.
Yeah, right. There you go. Because I'm like, Tui's pretty good, I reckon. I quite enjoyed
and
Tui.
Spates.
Yeah, Spates is good too. Yeah. No, excellent. No, that was just, I thought I'd interject for a moment.
It's cool that that's a different backstory to most people, whereas part of your taste profile journey was making it yourself. We haven't spoken to anyone who's had that. That's actually really cool. And we're learning more about hops. Do you think that part of enjoying the New Zealand beers more than the Australian ones might come down to just the different hop varieties available, or was there you understanding a bit more about beer from a technical standpoint? Is there something in regards to maybe how they make it that made you prefer ones from
I don't know.
your
I
home
think
country?
I think it was just what people liked over there and what they got used to, and I guess it's two different markets. They were separate, and, you know, when you've got, you know, one separate market, things develop differently to, you know, something over here that's, you know, and in different climates as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, that's true.
So, you know, the beers over here were very crisp and clean, and, you know, over there they were more malty, and so
if we could steal something from New Zealand beers, it would be 12 packs available at the supermarket next to the cheese. Because when I was there, I loved that. Just if you were just there, any part of the supermarket on an end, there'd just be like an impulse, like Monteith's 12 packs, all of them. It's like, this is great. How awesome is this? Just for like accessibility, it's fantastic.
Keep an eye out for the brew house when we get it up. Cheese and beer, 12 packs. Nice.
Impulse end just for you.
Yeah. So before we get into trying the next beer, which of course the Generosity, yeah, it's a good idea. The Generosity, fantastic from you guys. Simon, you got any more sort of little fun questions? You always like to chuck a couple in.
Oh, yeah, I suppose nothing to be worried about here, boys. It's all right. So I'm just wondering... Oh, geez. Oh, there we go. Other than Murray Towns, what's in your fridge currently?
Well, I've got some staples. Mountain Culture is one. Even before they won Gabs, I really love their status quo.
Yeah.
I think it's just a brilliant beer.
Yep.
I always love crankshafts as well.
Yep.
So always kind of they're my staples, they're my go-tos.
Yep.
And then I love to just try different beers, At the moment I'd have in the fridge King River's Red IPA, which I love.
That's a fantastic beer.
It's a beautiful beer. It's done such a good job with that. It's just a beautiful beer, and I keep going back to it. I've got also one of his Maybons as well, which I really enjoy. Midder, I've got the Velvet Revolution, I think, and another one of theirs as well. I think the Maybach from them as well. So that's probably in my fridge at the moment. And my
going for beers after this.
and my my Rocky Ridge 24-hour boil 16%, which I'm reluctant to open just yet. Yeah, but
Save it for a
barley
special
wine, exactly.
occasion. Yeah.
So that's probably my fridge at the moment, and I've got to temper it because I'm always getting into trouble with the better half about how much beer is actually in the fridge. So.
Yeah, I was about to say it must be a separate thing. That's a pretty good fridge. I'll tell you what.
It's a good fridge.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about yourself?
I've got bugger all in my fridge at the moment, other than kegs cold crashing and.
Oh, there you go. How good.
But I've got a Borelin Golden Ale there, which is from out around the Whitton area.
Okay, yeah, right.
That's something that's made from Voyager
Yep.
Voyager malts.
Yep.
I've just finished a few English sort of pales that I got from First Choice there, just to see, what sort of flavours they were presenting into those sort of caramelly toffee sort of things that I seem to like.
Yep.
And I've just come back from South Africa not that long ago, and I was just super impressed with the craft beer over there.
Yeah, right.
Amazing. And it's really inspired me to try and, recreate some of that.
What do you think the main differences were? Can you call out any that you were like, oh, it's definitely more fruity, less fruity, more malty, that sort of thing?
They were quite well balanced. There was nothing that was really super, hoppy and fruity. They just had good balance. There was a range. They were mainly European style beers because they bring in their brewers from Europe, and they just were so good. And they were all. I love a crystal clear beer, and I know that's not what we're drinking here now. It's a bit hazy, but that's because at home I don't use any finings, or there's nothing filtering anything.
Yep.
Or it just over time it'll settle out, and eventually that will be a nice crystal clear beer, but it's only a couple of weeks old at this stage, so be interesting to see how it develops, eh?
You're gonna hate this, but don't change a thing.
Yeah, I suppose just on that, it is a little bit hazy, but it doesn't necessarily taste hazy. It tastes clean and crisp, and a little bit.
I'm not sure if it might be the macadamias in there adding a bit more protein and stuff in there that's just suspended in the. But I'm pretty sure that'll drop out. Over time, and
it'll be interesting to taste the next iteration, like when it's on tap or in a can, just to see what the
Yeah.
difference actually is. Yeah, very good. Good stuff.
Yeah, sorry to make you do more work, but if you want to
like
grab the
it?
next
Yes.
one, and we might have a bit of a taste test, and we'll
Sure.
we'll finish off with what will be the next addition to the core range, which
Yeah, the
is
next
very
one.
exciting.
The next one, yeah.
Now, I'll just let you know, Grazie, without asking him, he loves anything red. So he's pretty excited.
That's why you and I are friends.
Yeah, I was going to say. Cute. Well, this doesn't present how I want it to at the moment. Like, it's only about a week older than the Golden Max, so it hasn't cleared up yet either.
Yep, that's all right.
But and it's quite dark for a red.
Well, it's funny, Simon, you say that, and that's I think part of why I really enjoyed the Ashes English Bitter from these guys is you get that malty sort of biscuity flavouring that if you think, any bitter you may have had, you wouldn't associate with that sort of malt backbone, and that's the really enjoyable part of it, and that's why. Yeah, I know when I finished my can, I was going for dinner afterwards, and I thought. And I know this will happen in time, but I thought, gee, it'd be nice if where I'm going had this in cans or on tap for me to have a few more. So, yeah.
Yeah, really had such good feedback about the English Bitter. It's just a beautiful drinking beer, and we had a little talk a little bit before about how the flavour profile actually changes over temperatures. So it's a beautiful drink at 3 degrees, like a beautiful summer beer even at 3 degrees. But as it warms up and as you get more towards about 10 degrees, those malt flavours really come forward a little bit more.
Oh, it's really
So
cool
it's a
you've
different
just
kind
given
of
a
drink.
number on that because we spoke off air about this as well. But chatting with Simo, especially like on his beer journey, the changeover from trying to drink a cold stout and then letting it breathe a little bit in the open air, and then knowing Simon not necessarily always being the biggest fan of big, heavy red IPAs necessarily, and then myself enjoying one once and saying, once it warms up a little bit, the whole flavour profile completely changes. So it's really cool to hear it sort of like you having numbers of like 3 degrees to 10 degrees. I've never heard it quantified like that, so that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we don't in Australia really think about too much. We think cold beer's got to be cold, and that's the only way to drink beer. But
All beer's got to be cold.
yeah, and it's just interesting that especially the darker beers really respond well to a change in temperature, having that little bit of difference in temperature can make a difference and make it a more enjoyable experience because what you're drinking at 3 degrees can be different at a higher temperature, which is I think really worth thinking about.
Well, sorry, this is silly. With an understanding of that, is your tomato sauce in the fridge or in the pantry?
Well, I've got two answers to that. I've got a homemade tomato sauce that's in the fridge and a Master Foods one that lives in the pantry. So
there you go.
I don't know if that covers both, but I don't want to get painted into that argument.
We'll start going in Vegemite and then peanut butter. The lingering mouthfeel and taste of this after the initial sip, it goes on and on and on. It's fantastic, and it almost changes after you've the beer's gone down. That's so. What percentage is this sitting at as well?
5.
It is just a 5. It doesn't taste like anything really, really strong.
No.
Yeah, but like the actual flavour itself is not the beer.
Well,
if
when
that
you
makes
start
sense.
adding those darker malts, they have lower attenuation, so they don't create as much fermentable sugar. So, if you're keeping the same size malt bill, then generally the alcohol content sort of drops a little bit with it.
Yep. The malt on this towards the end, this is going to be a fan favourite. I think I can just say that very comfortably
Yeah,
right now. I
nice.
think people will really enjoy what you get from this after the initial sip, and that's the best thing about craft beer as well. Perceptions changed over the course of a sip of a beer, and it certainly did with this because the first sip of this, a nice red ale, and then towards the end, it's just this biscuity malt that just continues to go. It's really, are you guys finding that as well?
Yeah, for sure. What was Hud was on before?
I've forgotten. Zach started talking and I forgot. It's standard us.
I am sitting in the middle.
I've got one. It's just occurred to me. So these are new ones. These are sort of not experimental, but developmental.
Yeah.
Were these? So these last two, were they technically home brews by definition? That's insane. That's absolutely ridiculous. No, yours was good. Yours was good. It did have I did have a fair bit of orange in there, but it was good. Well, I just had the best. No offense, Harden, but I just had the best 2 home brews I've ever had. Jeez, you definitely knew he was onto something.
Yeah,
this is what he was bringing out.
I think that was the thing that drove me particularly, is to push this along. I think Jodie kind of underestimated his own talent in terms of producing beers, and I think he used to bring out beers and say, "Oh, this is this type of beer. It's probably not very good, but it actually is really good." And even beers that he thinks probably don't hit the mark are still really drinkable, like really good beers. So I think he has a great understanding of how flavours work together and how to build a beautiful beer. So yeah, it's great.
Just on that now, just that I've had that revelation and I'm stuck on it. It's absolutely amazing. I'm on a roll. So how do you go from you got the home brew? Is there much? There would be a massive difference, but are there things to consider when you go from like a small batch to like a commercial batch sort of thing? Is there anything that changes?
Well, to be honest with you, I create the 20 litre batch, and then I give that basic recipe to Tim at Tumit, and he's got some software and he just scales it all up. Okay. Yep. So when it won't be exactly the same. Obviously, it's nothing's going to transfer over perfectly to a large batch, but it'll be close, and it's probably something that we'll work on as well. So it'll be great when we get our own equipment and we can get these recipes nailed down to our equipment, and then get that consistency happening how we want it. Yeah. If we might want to tweak it a little bit after the first one, but once we've nailed it, hopefully it's just going to all just come together. And
that's awesome. Because I'm thinking, it hasn't happened much. I'm not much of a baker, but I'll bake a cake and I'll be like, oh, that was really good. I'll bake one for Mum. I'll just double the recipe, and it doesn't necessarily end up that way. So I was interested. That's cool.
That was going to be my question, was if you're doing 20 litres and then you're going up to 1,000, is it just a matter of timesing everything by 50? But it's not.
It's not really, no, because things react differently in larger volumes, and and the equipment is way different, just the mashing and all that sort of thing. It's just
Got to spend a lot of money on a macadamia.
There's a lot
masher.
of chemistry in there that's going to happen differently just because of the the conditions.
So with the future plans for the venue inside the Lincoln, should we be expecting the 3 beers you have out plus the 2 we've enjoyed today? Is there a certain amount of taps that you have? Would there be Tumut River potentially?
Yes.
Or
So we're really keen to promote other breweries as well. We'd love to have taps available for Tumut, King River, Midder,
awesome.
Thirsty Crow, whoever it might be. We'd love to really promote the industry. So it's not just a matter of our beers, but we want to make sure that everyone knows that there's other great craft breweries around.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that we showcase the industry, not only our own beers, but
if we're going to succeed, the whole industry needs to succeed.
Yeah.
So I think
we
that's
really
the collaboration and craft brewery. Yeah.
Conscious of that.
On a lighter note of that, if you do happen to take requests for that extra tap, the Thirsty Crow Vanilla Milk Stout, I'll walk in with my paycheck every week and just hand it over and just keep going until I'm out.
I know, he's done such an amazing job with that beer particularly. He makes great beer, but that stout is a killer. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and Craig, if you're watching, mate, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. I'm a Wagga boy originally, so that would probably be my first brewery experience. I'm because I was the same as you. I had a bit of a chuckle to myself over here. You walk in and on tap is, VB, 4X, 2 is old, and something else. And when Carlton Dry came along, it's like, whew, what's this?
Yeah.
But then the brewery opened in town, and I was drinking. It's like, what's a Kolsch? I don't know what a Kolsch is. And then this vanilla milk stout. Oh, goodness me, absolutely delicious.
It's a ripper, and Craig's a great guy, and I've only really communicated with Craig over email, and we're hopefully getting together in the next couple of weeks just to talk about the industry and talk about how we can operate here and he can operate there, and get some synergy about how we build the industry together, which will be exciting.
Well, this has been fantastic. So as we're winding up and enjoying this beautiful nagging cell, so look out for that, everybody. Is there anything else just about Murray Towns in general, or just you guys existing in the local area, or just goals you might have for the future? I mean, obviously the upcoming brewpub signing a lease is fantastic, but any more personal goals potentially?
I think for us it's we're kind of really invested in community, so we want to make sure that the brewery is part of a really strong community. We want to support other local initiatives, really to be seen as a stand-up member of the community. We want the brewery to be a bit of a beacon in that sense, I guess, is that we want to be known to be supportive, and really, I guess, leverage our business to promote the region. We love the region. We think it's probably one of Australia's best kept secrets, and if we can play our part in promoting the region, bringing people here, that's what excites me. It's
number one rated town in Australia now, so it's going to
absolutely.
start happening more, and you guys will be there when more people start showing up.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got so much to offer here as a region that and Albury itself can be a great springboard into the region around us. But to have a good offer here and be part of the community, is what excites me, and I think it's going to be a great adventure for us, and a lot of money and a lot of
floating some
lot
kegs
of
down
fun,
the
but-
Murray River as well, and all the way.
Oh dear. Very good. Well, I'll do the sign out, I guess. No, very good. So thanks to the guys from Murray Towns. We had a really good time. It just ticked over an hour there, boys. So I hope time flies because you're having fun. But here at the Woolhouse, thanks to Gav. If you want craft beer in the region, there's a number of places to go to. But Good Shed, Woolhouse, and that sort of thing.
Lincoln and
Murray
Towns.
and Murray Towns. It's coming soon. I had a really good time, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and for the great beers, for the best homebrew I've ever had. Goodness me, very talented. That's excellent.
Thanks, boys, and thanks for your podcast. Listening to it, and it's great that you're another, I guess, string to the bow of promoting craft beer in the industry. And we love the Woolhouse and Good Shed and Lane Cellars, all those guys that are really invested in the industry. Onward and upwards.
Yep, awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks,
Catch you
guys.
later.
Thank you.